Welcome to English by Levels podcast. This is Group Stage Giants, where football stories help you improve your English with real analysis and natural conversation. In this episode, we look at 5 pressure nations: France, England, Portugal, Mexico, and the United States. Some carry expectation, some carry home pressure, some carry history, and some are still searching for clarity. They're not only about winning matches, it is about surviving pressure, finding rhythm, and proving you belong. 5 nations, 5 stories, 1 first storm.
Welcome to English by Levels podcast. Hello everyone, I'm Sophia.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniel. Today we look at France, England, Portugal, Mexico, and the United States. 5 nations, 5 pressures, and 5 different ways to survive the group stage.
This is Group Stage Giants, the football series where we use real World Cup stories to build advanced English through analysis, rhythm, and conversation. In the first episode, we looked at the historical Group Stage Giants: Brazil, Germany, Argentina, the Netherlands, and Spain. Teams with deep tournament memory. Teams that often enter the group stage with authority already written into their shirt. But today is different. Today, we look at 5 nations carrying a different kind of pressure: France, England, Portugal, Mexico, and the United States. Some of them are favourites. Some are hosts. Some are still searching for balance. And one of them is carrying the most delicate question in modern football. Can a legendary name still help a team move forward? Or can he quietly slow the rhythm of a new generation?
That is the perfect way to open this episode, because these 5 teams are not the same kind of group stage story. France are not trying to prove they have talent. Everyone knows they have talent. Their challenge is to turn that talent into a controlled attacking machine. England are not trying to prove they have names. They have Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden, Declan Rice, Marcus Rashford, and more. Their challenge is emotional. Can they play freely while carrying national expectation? Portugal are not short of technical quality either. Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Vitinha, João Neves, Rafael Leão, João Felix, Gonçalo Ramos, Francisco Conceição, and Cristiano Ronaldo. But Portugal's question is more tactical and psychological. Does the team serve the system, or does the system still serve the icon? Mexico and the United States are different again. They are host nations, which means the group stage is not just football. It is atmosphere, national identity, stadium pressure, media expectation, and the feeling that the whole country is watching.
So this episode is not about clean domination.
Exactly. This is about pressure. France must turn power into precision. England must turn expectation into control. Portugal must turn possession into danger. Mexico must turn home pressure into maturity. And the United States must turn momentum into credibility.
Let's start with France. Daniel, when people look at France, they often see speed, strength, and world-class attacking quality. But what makes them so dangerous in the group stage?
France are dangerous because they can change the emotional temperature of a match very quickly. Some teams need long periods of control to hurt you. France do not. France can suffer for 15 minutes, absorb pressure, look almost passive, and then suddenly destroy the match in 3 passes. That controlled explosion. Kylian Mbappé is the obvious reference point. His acceleration does not simply beat defenders, it changes the entire defensive behaviour of the opponent. Fullbacks become cautious, centre-backs drop earlier, midfielders hesitate before pressing too high. Even before Mbappé touches the ball, he has already created fear. But this France is not only Mbappé. That is what makes the current version so interesting. Ousmane Dembélé gives unpredictability and 1 versus 1 chaos. Michael Olise gives elegance, timing, and left-footed creativity. Desiré Doué brings movement and youthful courage. Bradley Barcola gives direct running and vertical threat. Aurélien Tchouaméni and Eduardo Camavinga give physical security and midfield coverage. Antoine Griezmann, even when his role changes, still offers intelligence between the lines. France do not attack with one shape. They attack with waves.
So when France are playing well, they do not just look fast, they look inevitable.
Exactly, and group stage football rewards that. In the group stage, opponents often begin carefully. They do not want to lose early. They protect the middle. They reduce space. They try to survive the first half. But against France, survival is never comfortable. because even one mistake in rest defence, one slow recovery run, one bad body position can become an open field race against Mbappe or Dembele. That is why France are a modern group stage giant. They can win through structure, but they can also win through terror.
And what is the weakness?
The weakness is rhythm. France can be so explosive that they sometimes become fragmented. If the front line becomes too individual, if the midfield cannot connect the phases, the team may look like a collection of weapons rather than a single organism. That is the challenge for Didier Deschamps, not just to release the talent, but to organise the talent. Because France do not lack fire, the question is whether the fire is directed.
France, then, are not simply a team of stars. They are a team trying to turn attacking abundance into tournament authority.
Exactly. And when they find that balance, they can make the group stage feel brutally short for everyone else.
Let's move to England. Let me ask this as a special question. What is Tuchel doing differently with England? Because England have always had big names. They have always had talent. But under Tuchel, the team feels a little more aggressive, a little less afraid, and maybe less trapped by the old English anxiety.
That is exactly the difference. Tuchel is not trying to make England simply more beautiful. He is trying to make them more flexible, more ruthless, and less emotionally frozen. In the past, England often looked like a team protecting itself from disaster. They had structure, but sometimes the structure became a cage. The players looked careful, the passing became safe, the attack waited for permission. Trying to remove that fear. His England can still be organised, but the organisation is not passive. The fullbacks can push higher, the pressing can become sharper, the attacking players are allowed to take more risk, and most importantly, England are not waiting for one perfect pattern to appear. Harry Kane can drop deep and connect the play. Jude Bellingham can attack the box with timing and authority. Bukayo Saka can isolate defenders on the right. Marcus Rashford can attack open space. Declan Rice can protect the midfield and still deliver set-piece quality. Morgan Rogers or Ollie Watkins can come from the bench and keep the pressure alive. That is Tuchel's real change. England are becoming a squad, not just a starting 11. He understands that a World Cup group stage is not won only by control. It is won by reactions. What happens after a bad 20 minutes? What happens after conceding? What happens when the opponent survives your first plan? Tuchel wants England to answer those questions with aggression, not fear.
So it is not only a tactical change, it is also a mentality change.
Exactly. Tactically, Tuchel gives England more pressing, more rotation, and more bench impact, but psychologically, he gives them permission to attack the moment. That matters because England's biggest problem has rarely been talent. Their biggest problem has been tension. Tuchel is trying to turn that tension into speed, pressure, and controlled risk. If England can keep that balance, they stop looking like a team waiting for history to hurt them. When they score early, the country starts dreaming too quickly. When they concede, the panic arrives too quickly. Every performance becomes a verdict. Every selection becomes a debate. Every mistake becomes history repeating itself. For England, the group stage is a technical test, but also a test of emotional temperature. If they stay calm, they have the quality to control games. If they become nervous, the game becomes heavier than it should be. They start looking like a team ready to write something new.
So England are not just trying to beat opponents, they are trying to beat the story around themselves.
Exactly. England's group stage challenge is to play football, not headlines.
Now Portugal. And here, the story becomes more complicated.
Very complicated. Portugal have one of the most technically gifted squads in the tournament. If you only read the names, the team looks almost unfair. Bruno Fernandes can dictate tempo and attack the box. Bernardo Silva can control rhythm in tight spaces. Vitinha can receive under pressure and move the ball cleanly. João Neves gives energy, intelligence and timing. Rafael Leão gives speed and unpredictability. João Felix gives creativity between lines. Gonçalo Ramos gives penalty box movement. Francisco Conceição brings directness and old-school wing courage. And then there is Cristiano Ronaldo.
The question from the first episode continues here, right?
Exactly. Ronaldo is still a giant of football. His career is not simply great, it is historic. His mentality, his finishing, his hunger, his presence inside the box, all of that still matters. But Portugal's problem is not whether Ronaldo deserves respect. Of course he does. The real question is whether Portugal's attack becomes clearer or narrower when everything bends toward him. Against deep defensive blocks, Portugal can fall into a predictable pattern. They circulate the ball, push fullbacks high, look for crossing angles, and eventually the attack begins to feel like a search for Ronaldo rather than a search for the best solution. That is dangerous because Portugal have players who need movement, rotations, and combinations. Bernardo wants rhythm, Bruno wants vertical options, Vitinha wants passing triangles, Leao wants isolation and space, João Neves wants timing around the box. If the team becomes too fixed around Ronaldo as the central reference, the younger creators can lose natural freedom.
So Portugal have talent, but not always flow.
Exactly. Portugal have possession, but possession is not the same as control. Control means you are moving the opponent. Possession sometimes only means you are moving the ball. That is Portugal's group stage dilemma. They can dominate the numbers and still leave the match feeling unfinished. They can have the ball, the territory, the famous names, and still lack incision. Ronaldo can still finish moments, but Portugal need more than moments. They need an attacking structure that gives every elite player a reason to move, combine, and threaten.
So the issue is not Ronaldo as a legend, it is Ronaldo as a tactical centre.
Exactly. Portugal are trapped between memory and modernity. They remember what Ronaldo has been, but the team must also understand what it needs to become. That is what makes Portugal one of the most fascinating group stage teams. They are not lacking quality, they are lacking certainty.
Portugal, then, are not just fighting opponents. They are fighting the question of how much the past should still control the present.
And in a group stage, uncertainty can become expensive very quickly.
Let's go to Mexico. A host nation, a football country, a crowd that does not simply watch the game, but lives inside it.
Mexico are a beautiful group stage story because they carry both passion and burden. Historically, Mexico have often been reliable in the early rounds. They understand tournament survival. They know how to compete emotionally, how to suffer, how to manage difficult moments, and how to turn stadium energy into pressure against the opponent. But this World Cup gives Mexico something even more intense: home soil. Home advantage is powerful, but it is not always comfortable. The crowd can lift you, but it can also tighten your legs. Every pass feels louder, every missed chance feels heavier, every defensive mistake becomes a national conversation. That is why Mexico's maturity matters. Players like Edson Alvarez give leadership and defensive structure. Luis Chavez gives passing range and set-piece quality. Santiago Jimenez gives penalty box threat. Cesar Montes gives defensive authority, even when discipline becomes part of the conversation. Alexis Vega and Uriel Antuna can offer directness, rhythm, and emotional spark. Mexico are not always spectacular. Sometimes the attack can look blunt. Sometimes the final pass does not arrive. But group stage success is not always beautiful. Sometimes it is mature, sometimes it is patient, sometimes it is a one-goal win that tells you the team has learned how to suffer.
So Mexico's strength is not only the crowd, it is survival intelligence.
Exactly. Mexico know how to live inside a group stage. They understand that the first objective is not to entertain, it is to advance. Control the emotional chaos, protect the center, choose the right moments. Do not let the game become a carnival unless the carnival helps you. That is the balance Mexico need, passion without disorder.
And maybe that is why Mexico feels so important in this series.
Absolutely. Mexico are not here because they are the biggest favourite. They are here because they represent the psychology of the group stage. The weight of the shirt, the roar of the stadium, the dream of going further, the fear of failing at home. That is pure World Cup pressure.
And finally, the United States. A host nation with momentum, ambition, and a football culture still trying to define its global identity.
The United States are one of the most interesting group stage stories because they are not carrying the same historical football memory as Brazil, Germany, or Argentina. Their pressure is different. It is about credibility. Can the United States stop being described as a growing football country and start being judged as a serious football nation? That is the real question. The team has speed, athleticism, and direct attacking qualities. Christian Pulisic gives technical leadership and final third quality when available. Folarin Balogun gives movement, finishing, and vertical threat. Weston McKennie gives running power and box-to-box energy. Tyler Adams gives defensive balance and leadership. Yunus Musa gives ball-carrying strength. Gio Reyna gives creativity between the lines. Serginho Dest, when fit and involved, gives width and aggressive fullback play. What makes the United States dangerous in the group stage is tempo. They can turn matches into running contests. They press quickly, they attack space early, they want transitions, they want the opponent to feel uncomfortable physically, and when the home crowd joins that rhythm, the match can become very difficult for teams that prefer slow control.
But is that enough against elite teams?
Not always. That is the important distinction. Energy can win group stage matches, but deep tournament runs require more than energy. They require calm possession under pressure, defensive concentration, and the ability to slow the game when emotion becomes too high. The United States are improving because they now have players competing in serious football environments. But the next step is not just talent, it is game management. Knowing when to run is good. Knowing when not to run is elite.
So the United States are trying to turn momentum into maturity.
Exactly. Their group stage strength is belief, speed, and home energy. Their challenge is control. And that makes them a perfect final team for this episode.
When we put these 5 nations together, we see 5 very different versions of pressure. France bring controlled explosion. England bring depth under scrutiny. Portugal bring talent trapped inside uncertainty. Mexico bring home emotion and survival intelligence. The United States bring momentum, speed, and the hunger for credibility.
And that is why the group stage matters so much. It does not only ask who has the best players, it asks who understands the moment. France must prove their fire has direction. England must prove their talent can breathe under pressure. Portugal must prove their structure is bigger than nostalgia. Mexico must prove passion can become maturity. And the United States must prove energy can become authority. Not just the beginning of the World Cup, but the first honest mirror.
Because before the knockouts create heroes, the group stage reveals truth. This was Group Stage Giants from English by Levels podcast. Thank you for listening and keep improving your English through football.
The group stage always reveals something deeper. France bring power. England bring expectation. Portugal bring uncertainty. Mexico bring emotion. The United States bring momentum. Different pressures, different football cultures, but the same question: can they survive the first storm? This was Group Stage Giants from English by Levels podcast. Thank you for listening and keep improving your English through football.